Dear Tony, if I may, it's great to see you. It's been a few years since we found ourselves sitting next to each other at a panel in Davos. And thank you for your time today to discuss with me some of the exciting changes taking place within the philanthropic sector on the African continent.
Thank you for what you're doing. I think this is very encouraging, very inspiring, and things like this should be well documented. And that's why I created time to be with you today. Highly commendable.
Much appreciated. Tony, Elumelu is a trained economist and a highly respected entrepreneur, investor, and philanthropist who's committing significant amounts of his time and energy and resources towards developing the next generation of African entrepreneurs and change agents. Tony is the founder and chairman of Heirs Holding that has presence in 20 countries, I believe, within Africa, and is active in a diverse range of sectors, from healthcare and energy to real estate and financial services, to name a few. In 2010, Tony founded the Tony Elumelu Foundation, which dedicated to harnessing the power of the private sector to empower women and men, catalyze economic growth, and drive poverty eradication and job creation throughout the African continent. Today, the Tony Elumelu Foundation is active in all 57 countries in Africa, and in 2010, it established its signature entrepreneurship program, which includes a $100 million commitment to cultivate the development of 10,000 African entrepreneurs over 10 years. Tony has also served in a number of impactful positions in the Nigerian public sector, including on numerous councils and government committees dedicated to creating jobs, boosting international competitiveness, and transforming local healthcare infrastructure. Dear Tony, I'd like to begin with two subjects that I know are very close to your heart, and those are the concepts of entrepreneurship and philanthropy. How do you reconcile the relationship between entrepreneurship and philanthropy in your own work? And to what extent do you apply traditional entrepreneurial principles to the design and implementation of your own philanthropic initiatives?
But again, I want to commend your initiative, and what you're doing is so useful, so good, especially to shine the light on philanthropy in this part of the world. So highly commendable. Now, at the Tony Elumelu Foundation, which we founded about 11 years ago now, born out of the desire and the need to help to catalyze entrepreneurship across the continent, out of the need to help eradicate poverty fundamentally, and out of the need to empower our people. I have come to realize, and so do my colleagues at the Tony Elumelu Foundation, that the best thing you can do for mankind is to teach people how to become fishermen and not necessarily to consume fish. And that is the center at the center of our entrepreneurship program. That's at the center of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. We have seen, growing up around Africa, the negative effects of poverty. The extremism we see in the world today is attributable to joblessness and poverty. And so we, my colleagues and I thought, what can we do to contribute our own quota in alleviating poverty in the 21st century? What can we do to refocus the conversation and shine the light on what we consider extremely critical in lifting our people out of poverty and creating jobs for our people? That is why we adopted the philosophy of entrepreneurship, democratizing entrepreneurship across the continent. That is why we launched the $100 million foundation fund to help people. So that over a period of time, we want to create more Tony Elumelus, more Zuckerbergs out of Africa, and it's working. This is a new approach. Before now, it's more like a charity, it's more like just giving money to people to help them feed, etc. Why that is important, we think that it's more important to change the approach, and that is why we believe and we say that what we're doing to catalyze entrepreneurship and catalyze a new form of giving and philanthropy on the continent. And it's working. Today, our commitment to supporting 1,000 African entrepreneurs every year is working. In addition to that, we have been able to engage partner development institutions to also support more. Today, we work with UNDP, we work with the African Development Bank, we work with the International Red Cross, and we're now with the European Union to help increase the scale and impact of this new approach of giving people seed capital, non-refundable, but more importantly, training them. It's like MBA in 3 months, training them how to run businesses, and we're beginning to see positive outcome of this initiative. So it's a new way of giving. We're proud to say that the Tony Elumelu Foundation is Africa funded, and helping to alleviate poverty on the continent.
No, and I really highly commend you for the initiative itself. I mean, we face similar socio-economic challenges here in the Middle East, and the fact that you are investing significant capital, but also your time and energy in really creating that multiplier effect, right? Creating entrepreneurs who can then go and create opportunities for others, and hopefully that chain reaction continues. Staying on the subject of business itself, the business world has been going through a period of realignment of purpose with the needs of society. You are the leading proponent of a concept created known as Africapitalism, which is focused on the role of the private sector in helping to create economic and social wealth on the African continent that you spoke about. In your view, is the African private sector doing enough to address social challenges? And what are the keys to getting more business stakeholders on board with this concept?
The philosophy of Africapitalism comes from a realization that the private sector in Africa, the private sector that engages in Africa, equally has a role to play in the development of the continent. And we must not just fold our hands and wait for government alone or development partners to make this happen. It's a call on everyone to invest sensibly, invest long-term in key sectors of the economy that help to create prosperity and social good for everyone. And telling people, if you want to invest on the continent, invest in businesses, enterprises that help to create value from within. If you invest, like in our group, we invest in the power sector. We invest in power sector because we know what access to electricity can do for the continent. So we're calling on others. The good thing is they're beginning to respond. We're beginning to see increasingly the interest and participation of African business leaders in investing correctly, wisely in our economic activities on the continent. And by so doing, everyone is contributing his or her quota in creating jobs, in supporting people in the business ecosystem, the value chain, different kinds of people, because we have realized it is an enlightened self-interest to make sure that poverty is eradicated and that wealth is spread as much as possible. That way we even support our own businesses. That way we will create new markets for our businesses. And, again, talking about linking this to the foundation of philanthropy on the continent is also at the center of this entrepreneurship. Private sector, you do well and make sure you carry your community, people, ecosystem all along so that progressively all of us will contribute our quota in helping to develop the continent. And we're beginning to see even private sector leaders not just helping to develop the continent by the investment they make, the economic investment, they also are beginning to commit resources in a sensible fashion, in a strategic fashion, in helping to further create more entrepreneurs we've seen a few of them come to us, some of them come to us and say, how can we support what the Tony Elumelu Foundation is doing? We like the idea of promoting entrepreneurship on the continent. Some commit their staff, through their staff, they commit to mentoring some of these young African entrepreneurs, because it's not just about capital. They need training, they need mentoring, they need exposure. They need also business support and patronage. So we're beginning to see an integrated ecosystem. We're beginning to see the African private sector leaders changing their approach. And it's also, again, a new kind of philosophy, a new kind of philanthropy that is coming, which is catalytic, empowering people to do more for themselves, because that is how we can eradicate poverty and create jobs and make Africa rise. And yes, I think Africa and Middle East will share similar characteristics. And again, the private sector has a role to play in Africa, in Middle East, in making sure that we drive the economic development of our continent. And what I'm beginning to also observe is that the global development partners agencies, they're like waiting to see people show interest like this from within, and they support them. Today, a week ago, we just announced a 20 million euro partnership with EU to support about 2,400 young African women in the area of entrepreneurship through the Tony Elumelu Foundation. The International Red Cross, they support about 250. The United Nations, we just finished a program in Mali for 2020. It just ended about a week or two ago. UNDP to support about 3,000 young Malians, because extremism, as I said earlier, is a derivative of poverty, and people feeling emasculated from the major economic opportunities around. So we want to reintegrate them, and I'm happy the African private sector leaders are stepping forward, and that the development partners across the world are also showing interest in this area. This is how all of us working together can help to develop Africa in a sustainable and truly transformative and lasting manner in the 21st century.
Absolutely. The saying is that an idle mind is a devil's workshop. And I also, subscribe to what you're saying, that unless we're really able to creatively and purposely engage our youth in our economies and our societies, then everything else we do will just be like Band-Aids. So I fully agree. No conversation these days is complete without discussing COVID, unfortunately. So how far back do you believe the COVID-19 pandemic has put us in our efforts to address the world's greatest challenges, including on the African continent? Do you think that the pandemic is likely to have a lasting impact on how people will think about the role of private philanthropy in responding to global challenges? And if so, how?
I think the pandemic presents an opportunity for us to reset as individuals, as countries, as economies. I tell you, in Nigeria, in March last year when it all started, through the institutions that I had, we committed $14 million, by way of $14 million financial assistance to the Nigerian government, and the government will do business in 20 African countries. And each of the countries will share the money just to support them. This is a private sector involvement. This is a private sector participation. This is a private sector involvement in helping to provide solutions to them. But more importantly, in Nigeria, we created what we call CACOVID, Corporate Alliance for COVID. And, Africa's richest man, Black richest man on earth, Aliko Dangote, is on it. The Central Bank Governor, Godwin Emefiele, is on it. So a couple of us, about 10, and then added a few more people later. And I tell you, the involvement, participation of CACOVID in helping to alleviate the impact. Issue of doing a lot, even we provided with the issue of the testing kits when it was difficult to get, we helped to bring it to the country. The issue of food because of the lockdown and its impact on feeding, which has assisted, we have to build, I think, in each of the Nigerian 36 states, in each of the 36 states of the country, we built isolation centers that could take at least 200 people each, and so many other things, okay? This is private sector involved, but more importantly is a realization now that there should be partnership between government and the private sector. It's a common goal for the betterment of society, for the betterment of everyone, that a realization that economic development is critical, economic development, poverty alleviation is critical for us to say that we've achieved a good well-being for our people. So I see progressively collaboration across the chain, and the private sector is also realizing that we can't keep relying or waiting for government to lead. We have a role to play, and that again validates the philosophy of Africapitalism, that we all have to step forward and play our own role in helping, because it's all about humanity. In fact, what COVID, in my viewpoint, has reminded all of us is a call to focus on humanity, and also to deal with the issue of multilateralism. When this thing started in China, some people called it the China flu. Today, China flu is affecting all of us. If we all came together, then maybe it would have spared the world this whole thing. So it's a call for serious reflection. It's a call for us to reset. And I think that is happening, and the private sector is realizing the role. The issue of the vaccination now, we're all thinking of the chain, the supply chain, to make sure that it works, it gets to every part of the globe, in record time, so that everyone is safe. There's no issue of self-centeredness again, because any infection, any part of the world can bring it to everyone in the world. It goes to buttress what I've always said, that poverty anywhere is a threat to all of us everywhere. And so, we're all beginning to realize that we need to live together.
Absolutely. And COVID aside, what issues do you think that strategic philanthropists and the next generation of philanthropists and impact entrepreneurs should be focusing their energies on in the years to come?
I think two things. First is we need to prioritize entrepreneurship, especially amongst our young ones. We need to prioritize entrepreneurship. And two, we all need to advocate for a better operating environment. If you prioritize entrepreneurship through seed capital, training, access to bigger capital, creating the right platform for them, like we did through the Elumelu Foundation Connect, which is a digital platform that brings over 1 million young African entrepreneurs together to create an ecosystem that helps them to discover themselves, help them to sell, help them to interact and meet future partners. We need to do that. And we also need to create the enabling environment, business environment, that allow these entrepreneurs to succeed. Because if they don't succeed, then we would have all wasted our time. So my call on philanthropists, globally, and especially in Africa, and development partners who want to genuinely help Africa to develop and become self-reliant, and this applies to Middle East also. What we need is to prioritize entrepreneurship amongst our young ones, because the future indeed belongs to these young ones. Okay, and we need to give them economic hope and opportunities so that they shun extremism and they shun migration, and focus on the opportunity they see among themselves. And if we do that and create the right environment for them to succeed, then the world will be a better place for all of us, and we have no option.
Absolutely. You mentioned a few times in your responses to the questions, Tony, the word collaboration, and you gave a few examples of that. So my final question is on collaboration. I know that your foundation already works closely with a number of international partners, including UNDP and the African Development Bank. What, in your view, is the best way for individuals and organizations to collaborate with your foundation? And what is your outlook for collaboration in general between philanthropists to boost impact? Do you think this is an increasing trend, or do you think that there is limited scope for true partnerships in this space?
I think it's increasing. I think people are beginning to realize that it's not just about self alone. It's more about impact, the scale, the number of people we're able to touch. And there are many models today. I mean, we look at Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett providing money for Gates Foundation to help propagate and support them in what they're doing. You know, similar things should happen in this part of the world. But I'm beginning to see, because we have a new crop of private sector leaders now who are informed, who went to school, who look at big picture, and who believe in collaboration and partnership. I see us doing more, but there's room for us to do a lot more. The Tony Elumelu Foundation, what we have done and what most of the global development partners are keen into, is we created a platform for all, a platform for all. You call them to Elumelu entrepreneurs, or you call them any brand them the way you like. What is important to us and our foundation is that we want to catalyze entrepreneurship on the continent. We want to economically empower young ones, young men and women. We want to make sure that women are prioritized a lot more than they've ever been before. We want to make sure that the young ones are prioritized. We want to make sure that joblessness is ended and that people have economic hope. How they have it, whether it's through the Tony Elumelu Foundation or that is irrelevant. In fact, for instance, today on our TF Connect platform, we train over 300,000 people now. In fact, it's free, democratized. You have business idea, you want to be trained, come on the platform and we're happy to train you. What is important to us is that we impart humanity at a scale, magnitude, and impact like has never happened before in this 21st century. That is the only assured way to poverty alleviation and eradication of joblessness in our continent.
Beautifully said. Thank you, dear Tony, for taking the time to share your always great energy and insights with us, and for all the highly impactful work that you have done and continue to do. I hope to be able to visit you in Nigeria and to visit your foundation and its great work in the near future, and to discuss ways to collaborate also. Thank you once again.
Thanks, my friend Badr, and thanks again for what you're doing. And yes, we would like to have you advise or sit on our advisory council someday. You're a great man. Well done.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much.